swept me off of my feet, and my heart came alive. I've always loved you since the day we met.
Jazz, 88.3 in the New Jazz Thing. Music there from Gregory Page. My Heart Came Alive from his new disc, My True Love. Joining us live in the studios here on the New Jazz Thing is Gregory Page. Gregory, welcome to the New Jazz Thing.
It's wonderful to be here, Vince.
And it's great to have you. Well, a fantastic new disc, a disc that you talk about as being about the very experience of falling head over heels in love. It's in the spirit of a bygone era of jazz music. How did your new disc, My True Love, come together?
I was hired to play a wedding, and I looked at my catalog of songs that I'd written, all these melancholy heartbreak songs, and I had nothing to play at their wedding. So I took a break from heartbreak and found this little spot in Morley Field. Just sat there with this old guitar that I brought here this evening, and wrote this collection of happy love songs.
And so you say that you kind of have focused some of your efforts in the melancholy area. Was it a big change to kind of get to something a little bit more happier for these tunes?
It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. You know, it was just a matter of finding a good place and then finding the good words that rhyme rather than sad words that rhyme.
Mm-hmm. Well, and composition has always been a big thing for you. You do a lot of your own work and writing, both composing and lyrics. That seems to be a pretty important thing for you to express yourself that way.
It's my first love is writing, and then playing music, and then naturally just being able to share that on stage, live on stage, which is something that came it's a lot more difficult for me to get up in front of people than it is to sit under a tree and write by yourself.
Well, you seem to be pretty consistent in the music that I've heard. You seem to have this sense of what I think you kind of talked about, this bygone era of jazz music. Tell me a little bit about where that comes from for you. What are some of the things that bring you that make that era, bygone era of music, jazz music, special to you?
I think growing up in England with my mom and the music that she played and listened to, my mother was is a jazz flute player, so I grew up with a lot of wonderful music in the house. You know, some of her favorites were, Eric Dolphy and of course Miles Davis, but my grandfather would listen to Bing Crosby and Rudy Vallée and the crooners from the 30s into the 40s, and so I'd always try to emulate that as a kid, and that was kind of I thought I had an interesting knack to be able to imitate some of my favorite singers.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever go through a time period where that stuff was just not cool to you or hip to you, and you tried some of the music of your era? You know, because you grew up in kind of the same time I did, the 60s, 70s, but you definitely are taking music from this other era.
Right.
Did you ever play, rock and roll? And
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I had a group for many years called Gregory Page and the Troubled Sleepers, and we were a heavy kind of rock band doing the circuit up in Los Angeles with management and a record company, and just a lot of attitude. And it was a character that I don't really ever related to, but it was a lot of fun. But it really wasn't me following my true passion, my true love. I almost felt like I was doing it to appease other people, and then at night I would drive home listening to Louis Armstrong and Billie Holiday and the music that I loved, so I never imagined that I'd be able to create or try to create some of this music, in my own.
So you came to San Diego, or at least to California, when you were around 14 from England. Did you? What was that change like for you? Were you already playing music at that time?
I don't ever remember bringing a guitar over from England to America. The adjustment period when I was 14 years old was it just consumed me. And I had this very strong accent, and I used to speak like this, Vince. I said, "Hi, my name's Greg Page, and I'd love a cup of tea." So I didn't want to stand out, so I tried to do as much as I could to kind of not be as English as I could, so I could fit in. Stopped ending my sentences with questions, wouldn't I?
And so you came here, and then when did you get into music here in San Diego? How did that happen?
I walked into a bar on Fairmount and El Cajon Boulevard called Megalopolis. Now it's just a parking lot. And my friend at the time was working behind the bar, and she said, "You got to come in. There's a guy named Steve Poltz, and he's playing tonight." And I went in there, and I saw this gentleman on stage with an acoustic guitar, writing and playing and singing his own songs, and he was certainly instrumental in that moment, that aha moment, you know, that maybe Oprah would call like a coming a full circle moment for me.
And that kind of inspired you to follow that love that you already had of writing,
Yeah.
and to kind of pursue it a little bit more.
You know, listening to James Taylor and Paul Simon and the 70s singer-songwriters at the time for me was what I was listening to. But then when I saw Steve, he was writing them right there, like the mystery of that was kind of broken down for me. They only existed on vinyl for me, and here was a guy writing his own songs that I'd sit and talk to, and then we became fast friends, and I joined his band, the Rugburns, and then never looked back.
Mm-hmm. Well, another San Diegan, Lou Curtis, seems to have been a big influence on you on the new disc, My True Love. You give him credits as your musical advisor. He's definitely been large on the San Diego music scene, influencing lots of different musicians. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with him.
My grandfather was booked by Lou Curtis in the 1970s. So it goes back to when Lou was booking festivals at San Diego State.
Mm-hmm.
And his record store by my house is my church. I go in there all the time, and he plays me these fantastic artists. And we're just so grateful to have him as a musical resource. He's a historian, and we're just incredibly lucky that he's here.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gregory, before we get too far, where can folks find more about you and what you do? Or you have a website and things that you're doing there?
Thank you, Vince, for letting me have a chance to be able to tell the world about GregoryPage.com and how much fun that website is.
Well, tell folks a little bit about how you're using that to, as an independent artist, how are you using that to kind of further your music and get the word out there?
When you order one of my CDs from my website, it's me that's going to the post office with a little handwritten note to thank you for purchasing my music. So it's very, there's always a connection between me and the person purchasing my music.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not on iTunes or available in record stores, so if you wanted to download it, there is a feature on my website that allows you to download high-res files that way too. But if you wanted a handwritten note and the CD, you know, that's another place. There's a lot of short films that I've made. Some of my Super 8 films and my quirky old-time films are up there, along with lots of fun stuff that you can do at GregoryPage.com.
Jazz 88.3 and the New Jazz Thing. Gregory Page and 3 Words to Say. A live version. You can get the recorded version on his new disc, My True Love. Fantastic work there, Gregory.
Thank you, Vince.
So I wanted to kind of to talk a little bit about your outlook on music. You're definitely playing music that is a throwback to an earlier era, but I get the feeling that you don't actually really see it in that same way. I read things that you've written, like my music teeters upon the tightrope my music teeters upon is the struggle between tradition and progress, history and fantasy. And then on the liner notes, or the back cover of the new disc, you talk about, for me, regression is the new progression, and there is a reassurance in the past. So tell me a little bit about what you're thinking there, about how this kind of music and this style of music can actually really inform people of today and be part of today.
Well, you just said it. I mean, it's really, and like a radio station like yours is vital, and it's preserving this incredible music that is as vital today, if not more needed than it was when it was being created. Mm-hmm. So I don't really feel like I'm recreating anything or reinventing a wheel. I'm just trying to make it my own and share it with people who enjoy listening to music in black and white, so to speak, mm-hmm. or that have a certain feeling of comfort in that. And recently just discovering an audience overseas that I had never knew could even, just beyond my wildest dreams, exist in. You'd hear about, you know, artists going to Europe to discover their audiences long before they're even known here in America. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of happening already for me and my little trio. In Holland, we were there in October. Now January and February we were there. Now we're back in August and September and October and playing more countries. So there is this lovely feeling that people do respond still to this music that was, you know.
Yeah, I had read you posted on your site a couple of either the interviews or essays on your work that were done in I think in Holland, and there was English translations, and it really did seem that you felt like you were kind of surprised that this was happening and that you were kind of being discovered there. But it almost sounds natural with your roots, kind of having kind of started there, and your parents being musicians with that kind of ancestry and culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't actually sound that like it's that strange to you that it's happening. But I can imagine having some recognition at all is good.
Well, I started writing music relatively late in my 30s, and I just had a birthday last week. I turned 48, so for the first time to travel to Europe, in relatively kind of in the middle, hopefully in the middle,
right,
of your life, so it's because over here it feels like such a novelty, this kind of music that we're doing, and we're kind of paired up with different acts. Nobody really knows what to do or where to put us whenever we're being booked into venues and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting challenge to create this kind of music and sustain yourself as a musical artist doing this music here, and especially in Southern California. I think it's an added, lovely challenge, isn't it? Financially.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, exactly. I can imagine here in trying to eke out an artist living here in San Diego and in Southern California is a tough thing.
Right.
Well, so tell us then a little bit about the future. You've talked a little bit about how things seem to be happening in Europe, and that you're making some trips back there to do some more tours and doing that. What other things do you have going on as far as work here in the States and other projects?
Well, me and my band, Sky Lad, playing the piano, and Josh Hermsmeyer on the drums, and of course our living legend Bob Magnuson on upright bass, and then John Reykjavik's playing all the horns. We're re-entering into the studio in the next handful of weeks to record this next batch of songs that I wrote while I was traveling in Australia just last month, and then I'll be returning to Australia later in the year. And it's in the spirit where music is being recorded in the moment. There isn't any overdubs in the sense of how we record. We record all in the circle, facing each other. And I love that, how we're reacting and interacting musically with each other without any trickery.
Right. So in that new batch of songs, we've talked about kind of this one being an inspiration from a wedding, and a little bit of another side of Gregory, not the melancholy side, but the kind of happy love side of Gregory.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you get out of that Australian experience that are informing the new music?
Really, all depends on what Luke Curtis is playing when I walk into his record store. And I walked into his record store and he was playing Ray Charles. So I went through this massive amount of listening to Ray Charles. So there's definitely some of that spirit in this next collection of songs.
Excellent. Well, Gregory, we have another tune from the disc picked out to end things, and I think I'm kind of lost my way listening to you, and in a good way. So did we decide we were going to do That's You? Is that how we were going to end things?
Let's play the second song.
Well,
we'll
okay.
end with The Perfect Love.
Excellent. Okay, so that's the one we're going to tell us a little bit about it before we say goodbye and go with that one.
There are some songs that you feel like maybe that you didn't write, that they were already written, and this was one that I finished in about 10 minutes. After I finished it, I took the rest of the day off and floated on a cloud, and then I handed it over to my friend Tony Guerrera, who's playing trumpet on this song. Well,
Gregory, it was fantastic to meet you and to have you in studio. Thanks for playing for us.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Vince. Thank you for the support.
And good luck with the disc and all the stuff that's going to come from it, I'm sure. Take care. Gregory Page here on The New Jazz Thing, and this is music from his new disc, My True Love, and this is The Perfect Love on The New Jazz Thing, Jazz 88.3.
Good job, man.
Excellent.
Wow, you got a lot of information done really quickly. You don't mess around.
It was kind of good.
Good. Okay, so
Can you get to that afterwards?